At about 2:30 this morning, one of our officers ran a tag on a SUV. It came back as stolen. He attempted to pull over the SUV, and the SUV took off. At that point, he notified Air Patrol, which means we had a helicopter that was following that car. The car came down Humphrey here, which is west of Dale Mabry, and parked behind a church toward the end of the road. At that point, the suspects got out, ran into a wooded area north of Humphrey. It's a very swampy area. It's been described to me that the water in some places comes up to about chest high. Two of the suspects were apprehended pretty quickly. One of them attempted to drown one of the police dogs. We had 3 dogs go in with the officers. One of our officers fought with the suspect and then defended himself and shot the suspect. That suspect has been taken to St. Joe's with life-threatening injuries. So then we had 1 remaining suspect. Out of the 4, we had 2 in custody, 1 taken to the hospital after a shooting. There was 1 still in the water in the swamp. She was in there for probably 2.5 to 3 hours, and at about 6:25 this morning, we went in and we pulled her out. So all 4 suspects are now in custody. I don't have all the information. They are fairly young. I was looking over someone's shoulder and I saw that they were, born in 97, 98, which makes them still, teens, but approaching 20.
Any officers hurt?
At this point, the police dogs and the officers, they're being checked out, but no serious injuries to the officers or to the police dogs or the other 3 suspects. We have, as I said, 1 suspect that was shot, has life-threatening injuries, has been taken to St. Joe's. I know that we had 3 police dogs that were involved. 1 that was engaged in a scuffle with one of the suspects. I don't know how many officers we had. I mean, ultimately we had dozens and dozens of officers in the SWAT team, and the mayor was out here. There were a number of people out here. We set up a perimeter around this wooded area so that we knew that nobody was getting in and no one was getting out, and we kept an eye on the suspect from the air. Well, they were still here at the scene for a good time while we were talking to them or attempting to talk with them. But at this point, we're trying to clear the scene and do whatever kind of cleanup we need to do.
And just to be clear, are you dealing with 3 male suspects, 1 female? The final is a female?
Yeah, out of the 4 suspects, 3 were males, and 1, the last one that was still in the swamp for several hours, was a female, yes. Yeah, I don't have all the charges yet, but there would be multiple charges. Clearly we had a stolen car that they were in, fleeing to elude. Well, one of them, engaged and fought with an officer and attempted to drown the canine. So there's a number of very serious charges. I don't have them all right at this time.
And you mentioned the canines recently went for training to deal with water.
Yeah, I think it was just last week that we had a water training with the canine units, which means that they actually get into the water and chase suspects in a sort of a mock exercise. And today I think we saw why we do that sort of thing, because the officers and the canines went right into the woods. Turns out it's very swampy. As I said, the water comes up to chest high. So the canines and the officers need to know how to handle those situations, and they did. They were ready for it today.
Steve, I'm sure you treated it as though these folks might be armed, but do we have any information about any weapons they may have had with them?
I don't know the answer to that question right now, but you're right. When you're going into the dark woods, you're going to assume that someone is armed. You have to be very, very careful. At this point, I know that shots were fired. As far as I'm aware, those were just the shots fired by the officer who was defending himself.
Of course, the obvious question is, why were these people on the run? Where did this vehicle come from? I assume we don't have that information.
Yeah, I don't have all that yet, but we ran the tag and it came back as being stolen. We've got a list of stolen vehicles. It was apparently on the list sometime earlier this month. So at that point, you try to pull the vehicle over. It could be over very, very quickly, facing simple charges of stolen car, but instead they fled, and it turned out to be a very, very serious situation.
Has the vehicle been searched?
I'm sure it has. The vehicle was still back at the scene when I left just a little while ago, so I think it's it's being dusted. We're checking everything out with the vehicle to see what we can find.
FDLE doing the investigation of the officer?
That's normally what happens whenever the officer fires a gun. There's an immediate investigation, and that will occur here as well.
Do you anticipate this area of the officers being here for hours?
Yeah, it's a complicated scene between the swamp and the stolen vehicle. So although you just saw a number of vehicles leaving the scene, there are still a number of vehicles that are still there. It's a crime scene, and we're still treating it as such.
Anything you want to add, I guess, for the folks in the community? It's okay to get out and about?
Well, we're glad. I mean, it happened early this morning. We're glad that it was wrapped up before most of the people. This is a residential area. Before most of the people here, would be up and headed toward work. So we're glad that we were able to wrap it up before that.
And my last question is,
Yeah.
I guess technology helped out, I'm sure, today, especially with the helicopter and infrared technology. How did that make a difference in the events that unfolded here in the last
Yeah, it's a tremendous help for us that we don't have to chase someone through town when they're fleeing from us like that we have a helicopter that can follow them in the dark, and they do a great job with that, so the technology of the helicopter definitely work. However, it still comes down to there are some officers that went into a dark, wooded, swampy area with water up to here, and that just comes down to some courageous officers that are going in there and trying to get the suspects out of there with as little hassle as possible. And it's a shame that one of the suspects decided to attack the dog and one of the officers, but we wanted it to end as peacefully as it could, and it's a shame that it went the way that it did, but that's just tough police work. Okay.
Thank you.